Welcome, my friends, to the 111th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have the audacious Kristin Thompson. I actually heard Kristin on John Lee Dumas's Entrepreneur on Fire podcast sometime about a year ago. Then I met her in, I think it was July at the Podcast Movement Conference in Dallas, so July 2014. And I love how she puts herself out there. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's an entrepreneur, and she's a hustler. She got out and made things happen, and she breaks that down for us in this episode. So get your pens out, get ready to take some notes, and then get ready to take some action, because that's what we're all about here, and Kristin delivers. So let's bring on the founder of Speak, Serve, Grow, Miss Kristin. Take two, take three, take four. Kristin Thompson. Kristin Thompson, sometime blonde, sometime brunette, always bringing it strong from Portland, Oregon. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You know, I first heard you on actually John Lee Dumas's Entrepreneur on Fire, and I was like,
Yes.
Who is this woman? I was actually at the
Who is this
gym.
nutball?
I remember I was at the gym. I'm pulling up your website on my iPhone. I'm like, I got to meet this woman. And then I met you in Dallas at the Podcast
That's
Movement.
right. Yes.
So that was very cool. And then I said, well, I got to have her on my show. And then here we are. Look at that.
Oh my gosh, it's happening.
Good things come to those who ask.
ASK, baby. Magical 3-letter word.
Got to get your ask in gear.
That's
So,
right.
Well, but for those that do not know you, would you mind taking a minute or two and give us the lowdown on Kristin Thompson, and then we will go down the rabbit hole?
Sure. Well, my business is Speak, Serve, Grow, and that's what I help people do. That'd be like the world's shortest introduction.
There you go. All right, everybody. That's
and
a
we're
wrap.
done. So what I love to do is help smart, sharp, already successful entrepreneurs learn how to talk about what they do and use speaking as a way to grow their business. So a lot of my clients are coaches, consultants, authors, or experts who go out and speak on their area of expertise. So we're not talking about, inspirational keynotes, but more educational and entertaining talks that serve the audience, but also serve as a way for you as an expert to get a lot of visibility, to generate leads and clients and cash on demand. And that's what I love to help people do.
Very nice. And is there any industry that cannot grow their business through speaking?
Oh, that's a good question. I have not met one yet.
Good answer. Just stop right there.
I haven't met one yet. And period.
Because I like to play devil's advocate, right? Because there's always people that are going to listen, and I'm a chiropractor, or I'm a funeral home director, and delete. I'm not listening to this because speaking won't work in my industry because my business is different. Blah blah blah.
Never
blah, blah.
seen it. Yeah, honestly, I've just never seen it. I think that whatever you do, there's an interesting way to talk about it that lets people, A, get a peek into your world, B, learn something new, and then hopefully have an opportunity for them to go further down that road, whatever that is, whether it's planning for your funeral or planning for your retirement or planning to get fit or growing your business. There's room for that message to be shared.
Right. So what makes you the expert, huh? Did you get like some presidential executive order and said, Kristin
How do
is
you
the
know
guru?
about that?
Well, they're all over the place. I thought maybe he just wrote one for you. And
I try to play it down. I was crowned and queened and given awards.
And christened and knighted. And
knighted. And am I missing anything?
I'll think of something.
Really, it's results. In other words, feet on the street, going in and giving talks. I live in Portland, Oregon, and anywhere really within driving distance of my home, I have given a talk in every real estate office, in every chamber of commerce, in every business association. And I went out and learned how to walk into a room full of total strangers and then walk out with clients. And I did it for many years just for my own business. starting by doing it for a personal development company. I would sell people into their workshops, which was my first introduction to speaking.
Okay.
Then did it to grow my own business. And only after many years of getting really consistent results did I ever turn around and try to teach it to anybody else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you learned a good system, I assume, right? So you were selling for a company like a Tony Robbins or something, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a very little known company. The blessing and the not so great part about that opportunity was that it was a very scripted talk. So it was one talk, and I literally had every word memorized of their script, and it was a very controlled environment, which is an amazing way to learn how to speak, or it was an amazing experience for me because you let go of the content in that case because you memorize the content and then that's done. And then it's really that art of walking in again to a room that maybe you don't know anybody in that room before that moment, creating a connection, getting interaction, all the way through to walking out with sales after, maybe 45 minutes or an hour. You learn very quickly what works and doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And so then I went on and started creating my own content and testing out, my own sort of revisions and refinements on what I had learned through that company. But that was a great training ground because I would literally speak every working day of the week. So before I had my son, I would work every day. And after I had my son, it was 3 days a week. So it would be normal for me to go out and speak 10 or 12 times in a single month, whereas that would be a lot even in a year for a normal human being. Mm-hmm. But, you learn very quickly how something works when you do it that repetitively. For my clients, I try to give them some shortcuts based on the things that I've learned. And, you still have to go out there and get practice and get good at it.
Right.
You can't just wave a magic wand and give it to people that way.
Oh, I know. How can somebody get started? And I don't know. I mean, we could pick chiropractors. I mean, there's one in every city, if not on every block. Sure. Well, is that a common industry? I mean, what's somebody kind of an industry you have worked with often that we could start with and say,
I don't think I've worked with a chiropractor, but I would.
All right. Who have you worked with?
So I work with a lot of coaches and consultants. So people like fitness consultants, business growth experts, sales experts. So a lot of coaches and consultants or authors really use speaking in a very big way, but it could be your local chiropractor as well. And a great way to get started is in your local area, meaning like sometimes we think of speaking, we think of like big stages and big lights and big drama. And it can be that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. As I was saying, I would go speak to groups of sometimes even as small as like 3 or 5 people in a little sales meeting somewhere. For those of you who work with companies, who work with sales teams, if you do like sales training, business growth, goal setting, personal and professional development, you can go give talks to companies, to their leadership teams or to their sales and management teams and get business that way. So there's a lot of opportunities in the hometown of everybody listening right now, chambers of commerce, networking groups, business associations, and then conferences and events that serve your community. So again, if someone was a fitness expert, they could go not only into business environments and talk about wellness and fitness and how that affects sales and motivation and sick days and all of that, but then they could also go to fitness-oriented events that are really servicing that niche and go be the expert there too. So there's tons of opportunities regardless of your area of expertise. The biggest thing to do is to get some help creating one talk. And that's what I'm a really big proponent of for my clients is just create one talk.
Yep.
And then get really great at that one talk and then ride that talk for as long as you can. And it's usually quadruple whatever anybody is imagining. Like you could literally give one talk for a year, even 2 years. I'm not saying you'll never add another one, but just even say a year. You're going to give it 1 year and just get known for that one thing you do really well. And that's what your talk should be about.
Okay. And honestly, I mean, people, to get started, they probably should go do the 3 and 5 person events, right? Because they're probably going to bomb or at least not do as well as they hope. in the beginning. I mean, you got to cut your
course.
teeth, right? So,
Well, your first talk is very likely not going to be your best talk ever,
right.
and it doesn't mean it won't be good. I promise you, the people at my very first talks literally were like, "You're the best speaker we've ever had." That actually happened, and we can talk about why in a second. But it's not because I was an amazing speaker. It's because a lot of people are horrible. And that's the first thing. Secondly, having a great strategy can make up for a lack of experience, and it did. But I guarantee you that was still my worst talk ever, right? I was terrified. I don't even really remember most of it. It was like, a big blur because I was so nervous and so scared. But those local gigs, and especially like in wherever town you're in right now as you're listening, there are like some outskirt towns, right? Like farm towns or just like an hour, 2 hours outside of the city. And they have a chamber of commerce and they have networking groups, and probably nobody you know or work with is there. And so go out a little bit and just have fun and go give a talk, prepare first. Let's like create a great talk, but then go give it and just get comfortable.
Right.
Get comfortable and make your mistakes where maybe people won't see you, because you'll be more comfortable getting practice there. And then you can come into your hometown, where you're going to bump into people and really rock it out.
So, all right, let's say I'm a fitness guy, and I mean, you have rotaries, you have chambers of commerce. Do I make a talk, how to be fit? Or is it like how physical fitness can help you close more business or help you be a better employee, or how getting in shape can lower HR costs? I mean, do you come up with an angle kind of like that?
Yeah, and it's going to depend on the person listening, but I'll share a few tips and ideas. One is, when you're going to create your first talk, or like the talk that you want to give for the next year, you want to hone in on the core of what you do. And then you want to look at, so for me, that would be, let's say, using speaking to grow your business. And for that fitness person, maybe it's helping, 40-something professionals, reclaim their fitness or something. You want to look at like right at the heart of what you love to do. And then you want to create a signature system around that topic. In other words, imagine that Joe Stranger on the street is suffering from all the problems that you solve. It's like a perfect ideal client for you. And they come to you. And then imagine now you need to get them kind of up over the mountain of their problems to the other side of the mountain. The other side of the mountain is like Mecca, heaven, right? The gates are opening. The riches are there. They have everything they've wanted. So if it's this fitness expert, we want to get this 40-something-year-old guy who's gotten off his fitness regime to get back on it, right? Go up over the mountain, be on the other side. He's fit, he's happy, he's healthy, he's ripped. Everything's awesome. So my question to you as a listener is, regardless of what you do for a living, what are the steps that you need, the key things that you need to teach this prospective client to get them up over the mountain of problems to the other side, where they have been transformed by what it is you do, or the products that you offer, or the service that you offer? And so if you do that exercise, what you'll end up with is likely something like 3 to 7 key pillars or steps that you want to teach. And if you want a good example of this, I've got my own Command Any Room, which you mentioned at the top. Like, that's a system that teaches people how to use speaking to grow your business. So we're going to give you a plan. That's step 1. We're going to teach you how to book speaking gigs. That's step 2. We're going to teach you how to craft that talk. That's step 3. We're going to teach you how to give it. Like, what do you do in front of the room? That's step 4. Step 5 is how to monetize it. There's 5 key things that I need to teach you to learn how to speak to grow your business. If you grab, probably everybody listening has a copy of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Or at least have read it, I'm going to guess. Okay, that's 7 steps, right? There's 7 key things that he identified he needed to share with us to be more effective people. So whether you're that chiropractor, that health coach, the business coach, the sales guru guy, figure out the steps or keys to your signature process or system. It's not really your process. It's the key things that people need to learn to be transformed. Those will become the bedrock of your talk, the talk that you should be giving. And that's the talk you want to give. Don't let other people, in other words, drive the agenda for your topic. You want to keep it on those core keys that you've uncovered so that it feeds your regular business.
All right. So that brings up, like, I love your number 5, monetize the talk.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that in a second. But what do you do when you're at a Chamber of Commerce or a Rotary and where you can't really pitch? How do you monetize that talk?
Well, you're screwed. No, you're not. Okay, I will say
creative,
this. Huh? Yeah, you got to be creative. I will say Rotaries, no bueno, in my experience. Like the Rotaries, and there's another one that's not coming to mind, but there's another club like that that's philanthropic.
Kiwanis and Lions.
Kiwanis. Yes, you nailed it. You nailed it, Wes. Kiwanis.
I am the sales whisperer.
They're not, those are generally not going to be the best environments, but a Chamber of Commerce, business association, high-level networking group, or conference or event will be better. Okay, so that said, let's just still say the association of your favorite people that you want to work with has invited you to speak. And they said, you can come, Wes, and you can speak for 45 minutes. We just ask that you not make an offer. There's no selling allowed.
Right. Yep.
All right. So one quick tip that every listener can do is give something away for free instead. No event venue, event organizer, president of the whatever club is going to say, no, you may not give gifts to my people. Just never heard of that happening. So they will let you give something, and they won't let you. You don't even need to ask permission. You just tell them, oh, no problem. I'm not going to sell anything. In fact, I'm just going to give everybody something. And they're going to love the gift, and it's awesome, and here's what it's called. So a great thing to do is have something online that you can deliver digitally so that when you go give your talk, you're still going to bring an order form almost as if you were selling something. But instead of it being a monetary transaction, you're just going to have them put their name and their email down and hand that in to you. And then you will type in their name and their information and email them a digital gift. And that gift should be kind of a precursor or something that sets them up to then want to hopefully dive in and work with you deeper. And that gives you a great way to follow up with people after the event. After your speaking gig, you now have their email so you can communicate with them. You have their permission to do that. And you can actually then send people to a webinar, a teleclass, or another event where you will make an offer.
Gotcha. Now, do you do paper just to eliminate an objection from like a new person? Oh, I don't have SMS capabilities. I don't have an email autoresponder. So, I mean, paper just still works, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, first off, yeah, you could sit there and write in type in everybody's email and just send it through your Outlook if you wanted to. But generally, most professional business owners have some way of communicating with their clients, some sort of functionality to email a group of people. The one thing that I suggest is don't get bogged down by technology. Just look for a way. You can get really fancy dancy and get short codes and have people text things and do all kinds of crazy ways to get people to opt in and give you their email. But I just find pen to paper. They write it down. If you don't have Infusionsoft or Aweber or some big fancy emailing system, you probably do have email. And so you can just type in everybody's email, cut and paste the same message if you had to do it the slow way. But I bet you most listeners have some way to kind of blast their clients with an email. And that's a great way to stay in touch and a great way to then lead them to another teleclass or webinar where you will make an offer. Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that out. Again, I like to remove objections from my listeners,
That's smart.
Because, that's how I got started. I was just like you. I was delivering somebody else's content on sales training. I licensed this guy's content. This was 2007.
Yep. That's the same year I started, by the way.
I knew that about you. I'm spying on you right now.
That's right.
And I called locally. I filled up a room. Back then, my local Chamber of Commerce would give us a free conference room if you were a member, and I could put like 20 people in there.
Yeah.
And So I did a little bit differently than you. I didn't do a lot of going out like to real estate offices and stuff. But I would actually charge like a small amount, $15-20, just so people would show up, but they got content, they got a workbook, they got food, and, a 2 to 3 hour workshop. And then, hey, I had an offer at the end for additional services, one-on-one training, whatever. And did that till I got famous, and
It's true. You start where you start. I didn't start with, now I have Infusionsoft. That's how I email my customers, but I didn't start with that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And now I have the ability to do automatic payments, and it just comes out every month. I didn't have that in the beginning, but I did have email, a phone, and a mouth, right? And that's really all you need.
Yep.
So I would hand type people's emails in. I would take payment. I would take, let's say, a workshop. A lot of times in the beginning, the way I monetized was I would put people into a workshop. And I would say, okay, you could do 2 payments of $97, right? And I would make 2 folders, one for, let's say that was this month. There would be a November folder and a December folder. Mm-hmm. And I'd have copies of everybody I had to charge each of those months. And I would be doing it by hand because let's face it, I didn't have a million customers, so it wasn't that big of a deal to do.
Right.
But that's how I made payments possible for people. I did them by hand. So there's always a way when you ask yourself, how can I do this? Not, I don't have the technology, but how can I do this? And it might be a little bit duct taped together in the beginning. It definitely was for me. Yep. And it still worked. And then it gets you to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you'll appreciate the new tools.
Oh, my goodness. I don't even touch it now. My assistant does all of that. It's like, I don't want to ever enter an email in again. ever. Amen.
I know, but it's like, I do a lot with Infusionsoft and resell it. And, people are like, oh, $300 a month. Well, you're right. When you're entering a handful of names a week, it's not a big deal. But as your business grows,
yeah, and you'll start missing. The thing is, at a certain point, you will start losing sales.
Right.
I got Infusionsoft before I needed it. In other words, it felt like a crazy amount of money to me. So I can completely relate to the listener who's like, that's insane, and it felt insane to me. Yep. And what I'm grateful for is that I kind of sacrificed in the beginning putting the money into that system because I grew up on it, is the way I always say it. I grew up on Infusionsoft. I grew my list on Infusionsoft, so I never had to do any big conversion. I literally built the business using that platform, and I'm not getting paid to say this, by the way. Yep. I'm just saying, sometimes that stretch at a certain point is going to be worth it. So put them in by hand. But then at a certain point, you want to get the right systems in place because you don't want to go give a talk somewhere or get very visible, do an interview, be on a podcast, have a bunch of leads come your way or even sales come your way, even better, and then start losing them because you didn't have the right systems in place. And so everybody knows when that moment comes. You can feel it, and then you got to get your ducks in a row.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only thing worse than not having enough business is having too much business and having it fall off the table.
Oh gosh, yes.
or then you let people down, right? And then they get mad because you can't fulfill. And now they want their money back. So now not only do you not have clients, you have mad clients bringing you down, actually hurting your growth.
Yes.
I like the way you brought that up. Because I did the same thing. I bought Infusionsoft in 2008 because I was like, okay, I see the potential. That's where I'm going. I'm going to a place where I'm going to need all of this and more. And that back then it was $5,000 down.
Yes.
$300 a month. And then I got certified as a partner, and it just changed my life. But I knew that's where I was going.
Well, you brought up a good point. When I first started speaking outside of Portland, so speaking locally is great, but then at a certain point, you might want to speak in regional or even national venues. Well, I went to speak at my first kind of national conference. So it was full, about 700 people at the event. I was speaking in a breakout, so only to about 100 and 150 people, but they were my ideal clients, meaning they were all coaches, experts, authors, like right in the core of what I do. So I went and I gave a 45-minute no pitch talk. I did exactly what I just recommended your listeners do. I gave something away for free. I did two things. I gave one gift away digitally so I could capture leads in the room. And then I gave another gift away at my booth because I had a booth at the event. All right. So that allowed me to send people to the booth so I could talk to people, meet them, and close sales there because you could sell from your booth.
Right.
So that's a great tip if anybody here does speak at trade shows and you can't sell in your talk, but you can from your booth. In your talk, send them to your booth to get some sort of physical giveaway, and then that will help you have conversations that can lead to sales. So that's what I did. Everything I set up with my system worked, and just like you're describing, all of a sudden I had this huge wave of business, at least at that time. It was the biggest sales I'd ever had off of a 1-hour talk, and I had an assistant who wasn't really ready, and we didn't really have great systems in place, and I lost probably $8,000 in sales on the back end because somebody had signed up for a big coaching package. Somebody else bought something else. They didn't get their welcome emails right away, right? They weren't smoothly onboarded, and we lost sales. We didn't hold them. And that, Wes, was like as painful in a way as no sales for exactly because I'm thinking now these people think I'm a numbnut, right? I'm making a bad impression and nothing's worse. It's better to never touch the money than to have it and then lose it is even worse, right? You're like, da, 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 da. So you want to be ready for success. You know, you really want to plan for should this talk go well or should this interview go well? You know, what's going to happen on the back end and be ready to serve people.
Yeah. I hear you. You got to be ready. And you know what? When you spend money on something, it gets your attention. You know, and you're going to focus on it. There's so many freebies and things floating around. We sign up for stuff. Our inbox gets overwhelmed. We can't focus on anything more than 30 seconds. But, you know, when you're spending $300 a month, it gets your attention. You know?
It does.
When you
and you will grow your
program,
business.
Yeah, it's $1,000 a month. You're going to pay attention to that coaching program.
That's right.
So, you know, invest in the things you know you need to invest in so you can grow your dang business.
It'll force your hand. And I know for me, that's what I always need, a good, strong motivator. So it's either that I say the thing out loud publicly and then I have to go do it because I just said I was going to, or, you know, combined with investing in the right things that really push you to grow. And those are important things to do when you want to stretch.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's like burning the ships, right? I mean, because I'm like you. A buddy of mine, I donated to a swim last year, and then he's like, "You should come swim with me next year." I'd never been a big swimmer. It's a 3-mile swim across Tampa Bay in January when it's cold.
Oh no!
Right?
No.
And so I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." You know, and then it's a charity thing, so I put the word out. It's like, okay, you know, because I put the word out, it's like, you know, they say when your why is big enough, you will figure out how.
You will figure out how. You know, I was being interviewed earlier for a video program, and the gal was asking, you know, how do you, let's say someone wants to get started speaking or whatever their big dream is for the new year, you know, what's your one tip? And we were talking about exactly this. And I was telling her the story of the creation of my live event, which is called the Rise Live Event. So this is 2 years ago. I'd had lots of local workshops here in Portland, like one-day workshops and stuff, but not ever a 3-day out-of-town, people flying in from all over, speakers, sponsors, all of that. But I really wanted to do it, and I thought it was an important next step in my business. So I was speaking at an event, and I had a booth, and I put a sign up, just a small little foam core sign, right? You can get them printed at any Kinko's or FedEx shop nearby. It costs like $17. Well, what I put on it said the Rise Live Event, and it had dates on it, and it had a description of what the event was about. I'm going to tell you how to rock your talk and rock your brand and rock your biz. Great. So I put the sign up at the event, and I'm thinking my thought process was, well, if one person buys a ticket, I'm in, right? I got to make this event fly. Yeah. But you know how the universe has a sense of humor? It like one-upped me. And so speaking of this, actually ties back to Infusionsoft. Infusionsoft walks up and they're like, hey, we have a booth around the corner. We saw your talk, the other day, and we're watching the action at your booth. And we see you have an event, we would love to talk to you about sponsoring it. So now I'm like, of course, you don't say no to Infusionsoft sponsoring your first event. So I say, yeah, sure, great. Well, you can totally work out a sponsorship. And I turned to my assistant and I was like, oh, shizzle. Like, I have to fill this event now. Like, I have a sponsor. We have people coming. And it was hilarious and terrifying, and so motivating. And that event happened. And has for 2 years now. Yeah.
So how much lead time did you have? When were you?
So this was about 6 months out. I gave myself 6 months. So I didn't like pull it out of my rear end, but it was still terrifying because in the back of your head, at least for me, I'm always thinking like, well, maybe is still a maybe until they said, we want a sponsor. And of course, I had already in my mind thought they would be a perfect sponsor. It was just divine intervention. But it was like, oh my gosh, like we're really going, the ship got burned. Somebody else lit it on fire. And I love it. I love that. It's scary, but anybody listening, do that for yourself. Say it out loud, put it on the calendar. Put it on Facebook, make an announcement, whatever you need to do about the big thing you want to do next year. Get interviewed, start a podcast, create an event or a workshop, whatever it is, say it out loud and then watch what happens.
I know. I gave this advice exactly to a friend of mine just last week. I was driving back from Infusionsoft PartnerCon, and I told him this story about cold calling businesses and inviting him to a live workshop. And I said, look, dude, we're recording this in November. I said, look, even though it's the holidays coming up, do an event, give yourself 1 month, do it in December 15th, somewhere in that time frame. I said, so what if 3 people come out? It's like, you've got to put it on the calendar. You have to start making calls. You have to polish that presentation and get it going. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's how we all have started. And, I've thrown, and it's interesting, right? Live events, you got to get more serious because I've thrown webinars and nobody has shown up.
Sure.
You kind of have
that's a bummer, but it doesn't really cost you anything.
Right. But you don't really commit. Oh, okay, I'll do it. I'll give this talk. And you don't give yourself enough lead time. You don't really promote it. You're like, well, of course nobody showed up. I didn't really promote it. And,
sure.
But when you do an event, and you got to book a room,
your ass is on the line.
People are coming. You're going to do it. And, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Oh, it sure is. Yeah. And, even when I did one-day workshops here in Portland, I was always terrified it was going to be me and me. That's everybody's worst nightmare. Even remember being in your 20s. I remember being in my 20s, you'd throw a party and it would be that same fear, like, well, what if nobody comes and it's me and my girlfriend and a, case of beer or something. So none of us want to be that person. And for me, that's where you can we all have ego, right? That's my ego not wanting to get bruised. So I use that to my advantage in those cases and say, all right, girlfriend, if you don't want it to be just you better get to marketing, and you will market your butt off when you have said publicly, and it's a public venue, you're going to make it happen.
Yep. Amen.
Amen to that.
Well, what are some final parting words of wisdom for our listeners that they can put into action? Maybe they're at the gym, they're on the treadmill, driving their car. Put something in their head they can remember. So as soon as they stop, as soon as they get to a pen, as soon as they get their computer, they can get started on something. What would you say they need to do?
It really comes back to our company name, which sounds self-serving, but it's like if you can only remember 3 words, remember, speak, serve, grow. Meaning, whatever it is you do, whether you're that chiropractor or that fitness coach or a business or sales guru or whatever it is you do, there are people out there right now who need to hear your message, and they need to hear it through you. And I think that's a hard thing sometimes for people to remember, or even to know or to discover, is that there's a magic that happens when we hear a message through a certain person. We've all experienced that, right? Like your mom or your dad's told you something 100 times, and then this other person comes along and they just say it in this certain way. And you're like, oh, now that Wes told me, it all makes sense, right? So there's somebody, you as a listener, wherever you are, there's somebody out here, out in the world right now, and they need to hear your message through you. And when you do that, you will not only serve the world in a bigger way and serve your purpose in a bigger way, but you will help that person grow and you will grow your business. So there's tons of opportunities out there right now for you to speak your message. Wes has a podcast, right? I have a podcast. That's something that everybody can do. You can be a guest on a podcast literally within the next week if you picked up the phone and reached out. You could be speaking in your local market. You could lead a little teleclass or webinar. You could be on a radio show and get interviewed. There are a million ways to share your message with the world. So what I hope that you will do is actually do it, is go home and choose whatever venue you want to speak on. Be interviewed or go step on a stage, big or small, but choose to speak. Choose to do it in a way that serves your audience. It teaches them something, and always make an invitation for people to take a next step with you, whether it's a free gift or a small entry-level package that they could buy from you. You've got to give people a way to say yes to you. And if you do, then you'll grow. So speak, serve, grow.
And they can visit speakservegrow.com and /on demand, right? You got a little something there for them?
That's a free gift. Yeah. So if this is speaking to you, no pun intended, waka waka.
Hey, I'm the funny one here. What? Don't be...
I did. Yeah. So we have some video excerpts, and it's not like a little highlights reel. It's literally several hours of free training that we've pulled out from this year's Rise Live event. And it's on demand, and I'll just leave it up and available to your listeners. We were going to pull it down, but just for you, Wes.
One time only. Hurry now. Operators are standing by.
No, I mean, literally, I was going to take it down, but I won't. I'll leave it up for your listeners because it's great content. It's a good way for someone to begin to understand, okay, how could I use speaking to grow my business? What's the big picture sort of roadmap of what that looks like? And then we go all the way down to the nuts and bolts of specifically step-by-step, how do you make an offer and close a room? So they'll get all of that. And again, that's speakservegrow.com /on demand, because we've made the live event on demand for you.
Very nice. That is most gracious. I appreciate it. And thank you for carving out some time for us. And I look forward to seeing you at an event one day soon.
You will. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day. I love how Kristin keeps it real. Like I said, she got her start delivering somebody else's content. And when I got started as a sales whisperer, I actually licensed another guy's material. And he had licensed someone else's material to get his start a decade before that, and then made it better, made it his own. Okay, and that's what I did. And that's what you can do and should do, and that's how you can get started. Okay, too many people think they have to invent the next best mousetrap. But the analogy I always use, talking about golf, I like golfing. And when I got started, actually for my 23rd birthday, my dad got me golf lessons. I was starting to play when I was at Texas A&M. And golf pros, when they're teaching you, at the end of the day, you just have to square up the club face at impact. Okay? You accelerate through the ball, and you hit down on the ball with a square club face, and the ball will go where you want it to go. So there's not too many other things you need to learn about golf. Okay, now, obviously, there's a million other things to learn about golf, but you're just trying to make that one thing happen. But when it comes to the actual lessons, okay, the visualization, how that golf pro connects with you is what you are going for. So one golf pro may talk about hitting the club or hitting the ball with the back of your hand or hitting it with your watch face or rolling your forearms over. So whatever visualization works, then stick with that person. And so that's what you're doing. You're like the golf pro, and you may think, I have nothing new to add to the conversation. And that's not true. You need to dig a little deeper and figure out something, how you approach your specific topic, okay? And then when people hear your story, because your story is unique because you're telling it and you're unique, okay? Whether you're married or you're single or a high school dropout or you have a PhD, what you bring to that story, to that equation, is what makes it unique. And that's why people will pay to hear you tell your story. That's what will connect with someone. So you've got to be willing to go out there and make the story your own. Make sure you're doing what you can to get in front of people. It's so funny. I looked up and a Bing car just drove through my cul-de-sac with a little camera on top. Never seen Bing. Guess everybody's getting into mapping. But anyway, you got to figure out how to tell your own story and then shout it from the rooftop. And that's what I'm working on right now. I'm speaking 3 times between the middle of March and the 1st of April. And my goal is to increase my speaking, my keynote speaking, breakout sessions, live trainings. So you're going to be seeing more of that. But you've got to get started. So if you have to take someone's existing material, fine. I had a 10-month training gig at Dell back in 2007, 2008, and I was delivering someone else's content on these 2-day sessions. Now, I made it my own. I made a name for myself. I was the top-rated trainer out of 25 instructors, and that's why they extended my contract after the initial push. And so I was one of just a few that actually got to stick around and keep going, and that was fantastic money. And that helped me formulate and craft some of my content that I have today. We're looking at now 8 years later. So get started, okay? Create your talk. Seek out speaking gigs. You literally just have to go ask, okay? And you'll be surprised at how many people will take you up on it. So something I'd like you to take me up on is visit 30daysalesgrowth.com, enter promo code podcast, and save yourself a little bit of money and get mo better at selling. And if you're listening to this before April 8th, really any time, because I'll teach this periodically throughout probably the rest of my life, but visit theartoftheclose.guru, and that's going to be a 7-session live training. And you get 30-day sales growth with that. Okay, so hurry up and order before I raise the prices. So again, that's theartoftheclose.guru. As always, I appreciate you listening. Feel free to leave a comment, give it a 5-star rating, and remember to always sell different.